Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer, forge, recorder videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to the Thursday edition of my bi-weekly behind-the-scenes DM-only live stream, Crafting the Deep, which I build, write, and prepare for our next session of Call from the Deep. For playing characters Gottwald, Mock, Salva, or Toro, the stream is not meant for you, and we full of spoilers, but for the rest of you, welcome. We stream our D&D sessions live on YouTube every Friday. You can join our official Discord server with invite link in the description below if you'd like to support the channel. Let's check out patreon.com/RogueWatson. For our campaign, we use Roll20. For streaming, I use OBS Studio. So last time we talked a lot about Iron Hand Cairn and the crazy situation that has erupted due to Mac throwing a giant Mac wrench into the plans for the dungeon crawl. Folks had a lot of really good, insightful commentary, however. In terms of how I should be tackling this situation. I know Refus says maybe go ahead and start with kind of a loose combat encounter, everybody roll initiative, and then go from there and possibly end up with a three-way battle if the party actually triggers this left-hand battle over here. And then comments on YouTube includes having the pirate captain, which is the Storm Maiden, actually confide in Mac, and have her be the one who's actually, seeking the treasures that are in the final crypt, and perhaps just letting the party, my players, I should say, control the pirate NPC so that they're more involved in this fight, which would kind of be a big change because that would put a pause on their exploration, just let everybody, jump into this combat encounter, which is certainly an idea. I guess I really haven't decided what's going to happen yet, and a lot of it is going to depend on, I think, still just the timing of things and how the players react. And, are the players going to be concerned with hunting down Mac and trying to figure out where he is, or are they more concerned with just exploring the dungeon crawl? I probably will begin the session with Mac and the pirates because I do need them to be in this room first before the party actually fully enters this dungeon, because we looked at Gottwald's site, was going all the way down there. We want to cut that off for dynamic lighting purposes, so include them down here. I did finally think to kind of rewrite, or at least modify. I was going to have the Sword Wraith commander appear, and there'd be a little bit of a dialogue scene where instead of it just being nameless ghost monsters that attack whenever you touch a thing, instead it's going to be like this is an official test. Like they're all like, sentient or whatever, and they say, okay, well, if you want to, if you find yourself, you think you're worthy of my king's, stuff, then you've got to battle us first. But then I thought, all right, maybe we will include a special little dialogue there. Almost I'm picturing like, Baldur's Gate or a BioWare game or something where you trigger like some extra stuff if you've got the appropriate party member with you. In this case, that being the Storm Maiden. So maybe if you've got her, because she is a whatever these people are called, Northlanders, I think. Then maybe there's a little bit of extra information there. And then AZ Fishhead actually mentioned that the battle doesn't even happen if you've got one of them, one of those, any non-Eluskin human that moves the lid causes the body of Thelgar Ironhand to awaken as a Sword Wraith commander, which I'm actually not doing Thelgar Ironhand. I'm doing a different person who battles, because I'm saying that Thelgar is like this massive man mountain of a dude, and I just didn't want to convey that with the Sword Wraith commander necessarily. I'll have him come in later, and this is just the commander like attacking in his, basically defending his liege. So I liked that idea. Obviously, I'm going to change it because I still want the battle to happen. So that's not going to be what I'm going to be doing, but instead it will be like, maybe you can only open and access the sarcophagus. It's magically protected unless you have somebody from that lineage. So suddenly, this is a fun way of me retroactively saying, aha, perhaps actually not like completely killing the Storm Maiden early on was a way for you to fully access these treasures. And the point of the party being here, again, wasn't necessarily to get these treasures, interestingly enough. Remember, the point was, at least their initial quest was to just try and thwart and defeat these pirate captains. So they would have already, had they defeated the Storm Maiden, they would have technically completed that part of the quest, but maybe not been able to. Now, I wouldn't have done it that way. Obviously, I would have still let them access it because I want to, do that whole thing and let them have the treasure and all that. But I think it's a cool way to retroactively say, oh, because Mac has at least temporarily allied with the Storm Maiden, then only be and she'll know like she's, you know, part of this culture, so she'll like remove her gauntlet or whatever and put her hand, you know, on the sarcophagus, and then it will glow, and then I'll have this special dialogue where the commander appears and like recognizes her as, you know, a Northlander warrior or whatever, and still have to say, okay, you know, you've gotten this far, but you're still gonna have to prove your worth, and that's when we'll summon the fight here and actually have a battle. Also, Demnix mentioned that the Sword Wraiths, I think, have damage resistance. Is that true? Yeah, so damage, the ghostly ones, which is they're resistant to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical attacks. I had forgotten about that when we were running our little tests before, which means any damage that the pirates do, anything that's not from her, because she could use her Javelin of Lightning as a magic weapon, all the others, I guess except for the magic guy casting Ray of Frost or whatever, but all the others would do half damage. So that suddenly puts them at a severe disadvantage, even though there's more of them and they have collectively more hit points than the enemies do. The enemies would do full damage and they would only do half damage. And I think these Sword Wraith warriors, do they have multi-attack? Oh, they actually don't have multi-attack. Okay. They have the bonus action Martial Fury where they can do a bonus attack, but that's weird because you might as well just give them multi-attack instead of that. Interesting. I still haven't updated the boss battle yet to let him have extra things. I'm still debating on how long and involved I want this fight to be, and it's really gonna depend on if the party is interested in going back and forth with their exploration while Max having his battle. It would be nice if we could time it where by the time Max crew triggers this fight, the other party is exploring, they see this, you know, interesting thing to interact with in room I2, and they trigger that fight, and then I can do the nice thing of just going back and forth with the fights. Although with the way we do initiative with creatures being all over the place, I would literally just have to intersperse it. There wouldn't be like, okay, now we do this side, then we do this side. I don't think I'd be able to handle that with the way our initiative tracker works. I think I'd literally have to be like, all right, this guy up here goes, and that guy down here goes, and just make it all big, one big combat encounter. But I can't necessarily force the party to do that. They can use meta knowledge and say, well, we know that, you know, in the last session you described a river and went south and all that, but the player characters themselves wouldn't know that. So I would hopefully appreciate that the party would not use that meta knowledge to let's get their butts all the way down to the south. And I think Refus also mentioned that, hey, don't worry about the passive perception. Let them figure out where the, you know, battle sounds are coming from if there is battle. And I would probably just have it be like a disadvantage check or something. I know it is supposed to be a pretty loud river going through here. It's a cliff. There's a far enough distance here. I don't want to necessarily say like, oh, you can't find them at all, but I do want to make it like a challenging thing. That Mac did actually go pretty damn deep into this dungeon before they encountered everything. And if they make it to the river, maybe, they could see the rope. Probably. There'd probably still a rope hanging there. That would be the best clue. So if they make it to the river, they would see a rope like tied to a rock that they could climb up. So I'd probably use that as the clue. Because I was just thinking like, well, there's not going to be really any tracks, right? Because they've been literally fording through this river the whole time. So there wouldn't really leave any tracks behind. Maybe I could have as a fun little clue like the dead body the cloaker left behind, like floating along the river or something to that effect. So a lot of the prep work I still can't necessarily do beforehand because it really just depends on how the session goes and everything. But I like the idea that maybe we can add some more context and story and RP to this character that I wasn't necessarily prepared to do from before, and they only have kind of the thinnest, you know, information from before. But maybe she wants vengeance upon, you know, I think it says Mintarn's crew. I guess I could keep that. The players actually went to Mintarn before. I guess I didn't necessarily say they had their own navy or something. So she wants vengeance upon somebody who, like, you know, where she kind of died the first time and came back, and she is joined up with Tentrix and the Black Armada. She's kind of a loyalist. There you go. Random number. I think she's mostly loyal to Tentrix, but she's not as loyal as some of the others, and she more sees the Black Armada, I think, as a means to an end, and she believes that once Tentrix has either died or fulfilled whatever goal he's got now, or maybe she just expects that she'll be given a bigger fleet or something. But she's kind of just like in it for the corporate aspect, where she's ambitious and just wants the increased power and just figures the Black Armada is the best place to get that power, and then she can lead her own fleet and attack. Because like Tentrix has been basically directing all these people to attack. Okay, we attack Neverwinter, we attack Baldur's Gate, Waterdeep, and now she wants to target like this other city basically. And this is just part of her this is not technically part of her personal quest. This is actually Tentrix was saying, hey, you guys need to go out and find these things, and maybe she suggested, she's like, I know of one site that is important to my people, and I'm gonna go claim it. And that's what she's doing here. So in terms of what happens when the party meets up with her, I think will be really interesting, and I'm willing to hear out the role playing of all that. But it would be very interesting, I would say, if they would be able to actually turn the Storm Maiden against Tentrix. Is not necessarily something I'm prepared for, but is something I'm willing to entertain. And I think that might be a fun twist. Is like, oh, one of the pirate lords is actually amenable to turning against Tentrix, possibly. Now, especially if they let her keep all the loot, that would be the big thing, I think. If she's allowed to keep all the loot, because it may be a thing where it's like, okay, go ahead and return to Tentrix and just tell him that you killed us or something. And of course, she'll need some kind of proof. Now, if they would like let her keep all the loot and somebody like cut off a finger or something, like I don't know what it would take, but it would take, I think, quite a bit for them to be able to do that. But I'm willing to have that conversation of not actually even having a full on like boss fight with the Storm Maid necessarily, but I guess I got to be prepared for all these possibilities. How deep undercover is Mac willing to go in this situation? But that's why I think we'll go ahead and have the battle down here as kind of a boss fight. And frankly, we just had a big fight, and the players already bitched about not having a long rest after their battle at Mintarn, so I'm not worried about them, being not being challenged enough, I guess I should say. So yeah, Ironhand Cairn is going to be nuts. I did want to talk about Narino, though, which is the next place and the next location for another pirate captain, which will also involve a bit of a twist, because I didn't want to do just the same thing of like, oh, we're going to, it's a dungeon crawl, and there's one of the pirate lords is there like halfway through the dungeon, and the party just ends up meeting with them, because we're already doing that here. Instead, Narino offers a cool idea where this ancient, I think, abandoned merfolk city is now the lair of a vampire. A ship sailing atop Narino dropped a coffin of black mahogany overboard, which lay in an underwater market. The coffin contained Mei Ling, a vampire who quickly adapted to her new underwater environment. She fed voraciously on the merfolk that remained, and since turned the city into her lair. The entire lair, however, is just depicted as this one location, which is what is it? Large building in the ruins, a palace carved from an enormous boulder covered with corals and anemones. The lower levels of the palace, which served as living quarters and banquet halls, for those parts caved in, leaving only the upper levels open. It is here the vampire Mei Ling resides. So the twist here is it is an underwater location. The party has no idea. They're going to go to the middle of the ocean. There's nothing here. So hopefully they'll get the idea that, like, I guess we need to go underwater. I don't think it actually says like how far underwater or anything it is. Does not. Just has some lighting and information. There's also a shit ton of treasure down here for some weird reason. And there's a big area where the vampire, she's not necessarily hostile, which I think I also want to keep that aspect of it. And what I'm changing is that the Sahuagin pirate lord, Dirge, was the one to target this location, and he sent his crew. The only thing I don't know what to do with is his ship, but maybe he just doesn't have a normal ship because he's a Sahuagin. So maybe they just ride on some kind of giant shark, which I could do. Like a giant shark is still like in the area, and the parties have to fight a giant shark in the water. That might be worth doing, like force a big fight before they didn't get here. How nasty is a giant? Because we fought a giant shark before, but it was from the comfort of their ship. Sort of. I guess they did jump in the water at one point. But I feel like a giant shark is still a pretty scary stat block. 30-foot long shark. CR 5, 126 hit points. Only has one attack. But it's a nasty one. And it's a beast, so technically it would not like fight to the death or anything. So that might be interesting, having a giant shark still running around. And like have it where it looks like it's got all the like, I don't know what gear that would allow Sahuagin to kind of saddle onto it. I'm almost picturing the hooks in like Dune, where they put those on and kind of ride the worms. I don't know what Sahuagin would use to ride the giant sharks. I need AI to try to mock up that image for me. But that might give you what I want to do is create some cool like the environmental storytelling, and then when they get in this area, they see a bunch of like maybe dead Sahuagin to be like, oh shit, what the hell happened here? And perhaps even having to fight some vampire spawn. Maybe Mei Ling has actually created some vampire spawn out of the Sahuagin. I think she's supposed to have at least one merfolk vampire spawn there, who didn't even like her apparently. Berryamo Deep Current, a merfolk vampire spawn. I haven't decided if I'm going to use those or not. But the big twist is that Dirge, the pirate captain, had arrived here already, and nobody knew that this old abandoned merfolk city is suddenly the lair of a vampire, and just a straight up like CR13 vampire, like not something that really anybody wants to fuck with. And she basically killed all of them. With, I think she has gargoyles on her side, which I might want to reflavor those as something else. Are they just straight up gargoyles? 4 gargoyles with a swim speed of 60 feet and a fly speed of 0. So maybe they're like, I don't know, shaped like fish or something. I still feel like stone would not be. Maybe they're like coral gargoyles. Oh, I like that they actually created a different gargoyle image too. What else is a material that makes sense underwater? Coral's the only thing I can think of. But yeah, she's got allies, in other words, and the gargoyles are a solid ally stat block. And I think she's got a giant lightning eel as well, which I'm sure Mac would want to use his giant lightning eel. But she killed them all and maybe even turned Dirge into a vampire spawn. So maybe that's what they'll encounter. They can encounter a vampire spawn version of Dirge. I will have to look up the rules again on how to turn, if there's a rule for that, on how to turn creatures into a vampire spawn stat block. Because I'll need to come up with a Sahuagin vampire spawn. There's player characters as vampires. I guess I need to look at the example vampire spawn and see. Do they have the regeneration, the vampire weakness, and the spider climb? Okay, so that's all the things that make them a vampire. Obviously undead. And they all have, okay, they really all have the basic vampire stuff. They're just kind of a weaker version, it looks like. Multi-attack, 2 attacks, only one of which can be a bite attack, because you can grapple people when you claw them, and then you can bite them, and that reduces their max hit points. So really, I would probably just take the vampire spawn stat block. We like the coral gargoyles, Jason. And give them, obviously, a swim speed. I think I mentioned this before, but do undead already breathe underwater because they don't breathe? I guess. But if it's a Sahuagin Baron, basically I'm trying to combine a vampire with Dirge's stat block, who is a 4-armed Sahuagin Baron. Maybe that means more clawing and more grappling opportunities. Because that would be the interesting fight. And then they might be like, well, wait a minute, why are these guys all fucking vampires? And then they get to the final room and it's like, oh shit, because it's a vampire lair. And then it could be a social encounter And at that point, the party's mission is already basically done because Dirge was already killed by the vampire. And it becomes an interesting, like, hey, do you want to loot this place, which is full of loot, but you'll have to fight this mama vampire? Or do you want to just peace out and be like, look, and still probably require a social check there where it's like, hey, look, we were here because the pirate captain dudes were here and we're trying to stop them, and we're not with them. We are totally fine with you doing your thing. Because weirdly, we don't have any of the party who is like righteously against just evil creatures in general, because they have worked with many, many evil creatures before and made like pacts with them and everything, including a undead wizard and a black dragon at one point, as well as just like criminals. So I see them probably not fighting the head vampire lady, although maybe they want to try to like stealth around and loot if they can. So to that end, I wasn't necessarily thrilled with this map design, because I think the party is supposed to come in and actually interact with the vampire lady first. And it's another situation where I would have to recreate this map anyway. So I was like, well, maybe I should just do a different map altogether, but like use the same encounter cadence or whatever, but using a different map, and then I can maybe save the vampire, proper boss room later on. So I was kind of looking at different maps, and I think I may have settled on one from Seafoot Games, which is folks, really great cartographer, map artist who I support on Patreon and have utilized some of their maps in the past as well as in this campaign. What is this one called? Shoot, I forget the name. I think it's Infested Underwater. Give me 1 second to look it up. Infested Underwater Temple Ruins is what it's called, from Seafoot Games, patreon.com/Seafoot Games. And this is the map, which looks really, really gorgeous. It has nothing to do with Narino in terms of how that map is constructed, but I thought I could kind of do something similar here. The only thing that maybe doesn't work as well is the fact that this is supposed to be like an underwater, well, temple, I guess, or church-looking thing where it's got like pews. And obviously a merfolk city, I don't think would have pews. If you're a fish person, I don't think you're sitting or need chairs. So, but you could also say like, oh, this was once a normal city way back in the day, and then that is what sunk down beneath the waves at some point, and then it became a merfolk city. Whatever. Who cares? Or maybe nobody cares. I worry about things that I'm sure my players don't worry about. And then they come up with things and mention stuff that I never thought of. So it goes both ways, I suppose. So what I could do is translate the Narino encounters to this map. Obviously put the vampire Mei Ling up in this large area here. If we can look at the original one, this is what it looks like currently, where it's got, I think these are full of other crypts or something that the party can loot. And then there's another vampire spawn. There's the lightning eel there. And then there's some of her special gargoyles, which I could still use. And I think you could even make an excuse that these are like crafted from coral or something. I don't know how she got a hold of them, but I think we can use them. And I can use a giant light. I don't know. I guess I could use a giant lightning eel. The problem is I gave the party a giant lightning eel that they can use as well. So it'd feel weird to like throw that at them and then they're like, oh, we choose you. Also giant lightning eel. Party probably doesn't know how strong an actual vampire is. I don't know if we've ever actually fought a straight up vampire in any of our campaigns. Cool token art we got for Mei Ling here, though. I like that a lot. I'm going to keep that one. AC 18, 144 average hit points is no joke. I'll need to change this. There's like a sword laying on a slab right here. That'll probably just be her coffin back here. She can appear like somewhere in the middle, and the gargoyles can all be like up above. Probably they would be spawned. Does the vampire have lair actions? It is her lair, so she should. I don't know if they're baked into that stat block. In fact, I think most stat blocks don't have the lair actions in there. They have legendary actions. It might be under Bion info. There's regional effects. Huh. Not seeing layer actions though. Yeah, we have regional effects, traits, legendary resistance, weaknesses. Surely vampires have layer actions. Is this crazy? They really don't? I can pull out my book, but I assume it's the same. It's the same information. Let's see. Vampire TUV, Vampire Spawn. There's variants for Vampire Warriors and Spellcasters. Do you want them to wield a greatsword or be able to cast a bunch of spells? Yeah, that's bizarre. Vampires are not listed to have layer actions. They have regional effects and they have legendary actions. Well, I would certainly give it some kind of a boss fight thing. And yeah, it's definitely its layer. This is her layer. Of course, I've also been kind of transitioning to just using layer actions in lieu of legendary actions because they're easier for me to keep up with. I've got like 3 books set up here. I've got the patron game tonight, so I've got all those books set up. I did notice that her vampire stat block, instead of a bat, she can turn into like a quipper, which is pretty funny. I don't think that would come up in combat. Maybe she would appear as... In fact, an eel would be cooler. What would be the equivalent of a bat, an underwater bat? That's more exotic than just a fish. Jellyfish is probably too weird. I think eel would be pretty cool. Swim along like this just regular eel swims along, and all of a sudden it just morphs into this like glorious. In fact, I could even make her like a merfolk vampire. And maybe maybe I get rid of the whole like, oh, she's a vampire that just appeared here and took over the lair. Maybe that's what killed all the merfolk here originally, is one of them became a vampire and she killed all the rest. So maybe she's a merfolk vampire. Hence why she's got the swim speed and stuff. That would be pretty cool. Nobody expects the merfolk vampire. If they end up fighting her, then I can make all the stuff. But I don't even think the party would want to. And it does mention in the text that she's not necessarily hostile. Now, the pirate captains would have tried to just loot the place and everything, and then she would have gone after them with a terrible vengeance. And maybe it happened fairly recently, so that when she appears, I could even have it be dramatically, where instead of her appearing as an eel and then turning into the vampire, she could like be floating down from the top with like, you know, one of the Sahuagin just like dead in her hands or something. That'd be pretty awesome. Or even the pirate captain lord, if I didn't want to make him a vampire spawn right away, because I think it's supposed to take a hot second for them to be able to turn somebody into a vampire spawn, right? Let's look at those rules. She could turn somebody into a vampire. Let's see. When she has to do her bite attack, the target's max hit points is reduced by an amount equal to necrotic damage taken, which is only 3d6. The reduction lasts until the target finishes a long rest. The target dies if this effect reduces its hit point maximum to 0. A humanoid slain in this way and then buried in the ground rises the following night as a vampire spawn or the vampire's control. So it's supposed to take about 24 hours Also has to be a humanoid, but I think Sahuagin are kind of close to that, right? Are they actually considered humanoids? They might be. Moment of truth. Are Sahuagins human? They are! Yes! I can totally legally have a Sahuagin vampire spawn. Excellent. I wonder how I. You know what I should do is look up the Kobold vampire spawn, because that was the last time, which we did see in a. Or no, was it Noel? No, that Noel was the vampire. That Kobolds were the vampire spawn. In our Rime of the Frost Maiden campaign. We never did fight that boss battle though, because the party wanted to get the hell out of there. Oh, interesting. Monster Man expanded to give us additional vampire spawn options. All right, there we go. Kobold vampire spawn. Because those were God, that art is creepy. Let's see. Yeah, vampire doesn't require air. I think that's something they must have added later, but I assume a lot of undead, which is why you could have a regular vampire down here too. So they do have the vampire weakness and the regeneration. They also, however, keep the pack tactics that kobolds have, which means I would keep Blood Frenzy for the Sahuagin, and what ability would be more appropriate for a vampire to have anyway than fucking Blood Frenzy? And then they also have the bite attack, which is. It looks like it's still weakened, though. 1d4 plus 4 plus 2d4. That's going to be weaker than a normal vampire spawn, right? So this is the part I'm going off book, basically. I'm keeping Nerino, but I'm shoving the fact that one of the pirate captains has attacked this location and basically been wiped out. And I'd love to create that environmental storytelling where the party realizes that as they delve into the dungeon and find like dead bodies of Sahuagin, and eventually even find a few maybe Sahuagin vampire spawn. And then the party's going to be like, what F happened here? But maybe it happened pretty recently. That's why they're all like crawling around. So I want to look up what a regular. Because a regular vampire spawn is like CR5. 80 hit points, AC 15. Yeah, spider climb we wouldn't have to do because it's all underwater. Plus 6 to hit. So these guys don't even have. Okay, these guys don't require them to grapple, but they only have the bite attack, which is also a plus 6 to hit. They just do a D4 of damage. Although the claw attack is a D4, but the bite attack is a D6. Does a regular Sahuagin have multi-attack? I think it does. Also, I don't think I've got. I don't know if we can come up with a token of a different looking Sahuagin that would be a Sahuagin spawn that I could use. Just when you guys thought you were done fighting Sahuagin. But you know what? This is the twist. Like, you thought you were going to have to fight more Sahuagin, but instead you're going to fight nasty Sahuagin vampires. Yeah, they've got multi-attack. So we could change that to be... In fact, they already have a bite. So claws and bite. But we would probably amplify... We could keep it a D4 for the claws. And then maybe still make them do the grappling, biting thing. Probably need to increase there to hit though, because plus 3 is a little too low. Even the Kobold vampire spawn is a plus 6 to hit. Also more hit points. Interesting. The Sahuagin actually has higher strength than Dex. I was gonna just literally copy the stat block of the Kobold vampire spawn. 18 Dex. Good lord. Just so I can use its stat sheets and create that. So let's see if I want to create. Sahuagin vampire spawn. We're probably going to take the basic Sahuagin and duplicate you. I wonder if I should call it a spawn instead of vampire spawns. The players still won't be quite sure what this is. I guess I could always hide the information as well. So Blood Frenzy will keep. I think we can get rid of the Breathe Air and Water. Well, whatever, we'll keep it on there. Shark Telepathy. So we need to add Regeneration. The spawn has. So that seems to be a common through line. And add technically the vampire weaknesses as well. So many weaknesses. Great power comes great cost. Replace the Null Vampire with Cloakers. Much more thematic. Nice. I like the Null Vampire, but that whole dungeon had a lot going on, and I even added another thing to it, which was, I guess spoilers, but one of our player characters kind of had a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde situation going on, and they very much triggered that. And that ended up being a huge, major battle for the party to deal with, on top of another big fight they were battling as well. I think I created like a boss Wraith at one point. And by the time they got through with all that, they're like, we just need to get the hell out of here. So they ended up bypassing probably over half the dungeon, I think. So I still enjoyed that. I forget what that dungeon's called now. Where the cave thing is in the penultimate chapter. But we did not end up doing a whole lot of it. Oops, that's wrong. Actions. Sahuagin makes 2 melee attacks, one that's bite. So we need to make 2 attacks, only one of which can be a bite. Attacks, one of which can be a bite. So they would no longer wield weapons, I guess. They would just have... Which means they don't have any range attacks. It's kind of weakened. Just feral creatures. Take out the spear. Let's move the claws up here. So stats wise, if they want to have a 6 to hit, that means they've got a +4 and they only have a +2 proficiency bonus. So I wonder if we need to give them that much strength instead of dex. Since these guys are stronger versus dexterous. Afraid to Go was awesome. Yeah. Hit points, I'm tempted to keep the same hit points as a Kobold Vampire spawn as well. It's just kind of a solid stat block to use. Not quite as... Because I don't think Sahuagin... a regular Sahuagin would be as powerful as a normal vampire spawn. But we can still use a more powerful vampire spawn for Dirge. So let's do 66 plus 18. Average of 39 hit points. And let's go ahead and just keep them at a 14. For that, I guess I have to give him an 18 strength. Is that what? Although Vampire Spawn only has 16, I guess they just have a +3 proficiency bonus because they're a higher challenge rating. So that feels weird to kind of cheat and just give them the same stats as here. I guess that's also why they have a higher dex. So you can tell I don't necessarily like building creatures. They have 8 for the Kobold Vampire spawn. They'll keep all their mental stats the same. I'm okay with giving them a 16 con, 16 dex, and an 18 strength. And they do have damage resistance. there. Condition immunities, and they have dark vision. I guess they'll keep their 120 feet. Challenge rating is a 3 now. And that is going to up their attacks to a +6. And I think we do a whole nother damage dice, maybe? 1d4. Oh, plus 2d4 necrotic damage, maybe. So we'll do 1d4 plus 4. But we add 2d4 necrotic damage. And then they automatically grapple, I think. Where does it say that? Oh, instead of dealing damage, the vampire can grapple the target. Interesting. Is that how a full vampire works too? And then interesting the way they change the balance on this, where a Kobold Vampire spawn doesn't have to actually claw and grapple, but it only has the one bite attack. Doesn't have any other multi-attacks. How does a normal vampire work? Did I keep that sheet on here? Doesn't look like it. Instead of dealing damage. Yeah, fascinating. Okay, I mean, they don't do a lot of damage anyway. So we'll keep that. Instead of dealing that. That's actually kind of a cool thing for enemies to do anyway. Like, everybody should have that, I guess. I mean, in fact, you're using the grapple. What am I thinking? That's literally just the grapple feature. You're attacking somebody by rolling your... Well, no, you don't actually normally roll it, do you? You'd make a contested check? Or do you roll the attack roll? I don't fucking remember now. You think I would, because Gottwald does this all the time. Stealing damage. Swagan spawn. Can grapple the target. With the spawn didn't have an escape DC, because it doesn't have that part of it, but I think... Oh yeah, it does. Sorry, the spawn does. The Kobold Vampire didn't. We'll do escape DC 13. That's fine. Because the idea is you do this first, you grapple them, and then they can do their more powerful bite attack. It's too bad they don't have advantage, but grappling doesn't give you advantage. So that one, we're actually going to increase their bite to a d6. I think that's fair. +4. Piercing damage. And then you add 2d6 necrotic damage. Interesting. One willing creature or a creature that is grappled by the vampire, incapacitated, or restrained. Delete the by the vampire, so I don't give that away. Or a creature that is grappled, incapacitated, or restrained. Okay, and then the target's hit points maximum is reduced by amount equal to the necrotic damage taken, and the spawn regains hit points equal to that amount. The reduction lasts until the target finishes a long rest. Target dies if this effect reduces max hit points to 0. Okay. So the idea being the Sahuagin can roll their... yeah, they have Blood Frenzy too. So Blood Frenzy does give them advantage. Interesting. So that would allow them to get their bite off a lot easier. Alright, so a claw attack. I rolled garbage there, because of course I did. They could then attack, dealing 10 damage there, but they could choose to not deal damage and grapple the target instead. And if they do that, they could use their second attack to then bite said target. That would deal 14 damage, and then the target's hit point maximum is reduced by the necrotic, which would be 7. I don't think the vampire spawn heals, though, like the vampire does. Oh, yeah, it does. Regains hit points equal to the amount. Yeah. Cool. I like that. And they're also regenerating 10 hit points at the start of their turn, which is also nice. Okay. Maybe we can have fun with, like, a really creepy, like, Resident Evil moment or something where they, like, open a door and it just spills out with, like, a couple of these guys. because they've got some fun potential here, and they're not too like tanky. Only 14 hit points and an average, or sorry, 14 armor class and an average of 39 hit points. They're not going to overstay their welcome too much. But Blood Frenzy is going to be huge, and then being able to like claw, grapple, and bite people is going to be real scary. Definitely upgraded Sawagans and then the regeneration. So I'm liking that. So bare minimum, we should have the player, and this is kind of what I wanted to do, which is have Mei Ling be hanging out, you know, back here more in her big sanctum area, which is this huge temple. But we have all these kind of rooms here where the party could fight the vampire spawn. Maybe we'll have some like dead bodies out here, have this door be ajar or something. This opening is also just open here. And then that's where the some of these vampire spawn could be. That could be pretty awesome. In terms of the Sahuagin, I think Dirge is a modified Sahuagin Baron, which would be terrifying as a vampire. Because he's got triple attack and would just be a lot beefier in general. For that one, we might use more of the traditional vampire spawn stat block, which is also pretty beefy. Because it had, yeah, 80 hit points and 15 AC. And the claw and bite attack. I could even give it, especially if it's a Baron, I could give it 2 claws. But what makes Dirge more interesting, although I'm not sure he would still have all this, is that he wields wands in all of his arms, which is legit cool. What does it say? He wields a wand in each hand, shooting spells at incredible speed. He wears a long wizard's robe. Which ones does he have? He has a wand of binding, a wand of fear, a wand of fireballs, and a wand of wonder. So even without the party looting anything in the dungeon, this dude's got all these wands on him. Now the problem is, God, I could have the party come in when she's actually fighting this guy, but I already said I wanted the Sahuagin to be defeated already and have it be like some time would have had to have been elapsed to turn some of them into vampire spawn. Maybe they don't have to be properly buried because they're underwater. Maybe underwater is considered buried. It would be fun to see this stat block unleashed, but I don't know as a vampire. I guess a vampire spawn still they're not like feral or anything, right? Yeah, intelligence of 8, speaks common and draconic. Actually, this is the vampire spawn, the kobold one. It's the regular vampire has intelligence of 11. Regular vampire spawn has intelligence of 11, wisdom 10, charisma 12. Any languages are new in life. So it could technically still wield this stuff. Basically, it would be nice to kind of let the party have a boss battle here, but also not necessarily be forced to fight the head vampire and instead be able to parlay with her. Because they're already here to kill the pirate captain, so it's like if he was here, like sequestered somewhere else. I'm trying to think. Now I could have him be in another room and like he's hiding out and she's wants to see him dead, but that's already their quest here. How is he attuned to all of those? Do you actually have to be attuned to wands? I don't think a lot of wands require attunement. But yeah, you could always say DM power. If I search wand, is that going to come up with 1,000 options? So what does he have? Wand, binding, fear, fireballs, and wonder. So a wand of wonder does require attunement. That's the one where you have a D100 table of insanity. God. Sabra would fucking love this. My wife loves the fucking chaos chant stuff. You can summon an elephant. Yeah, this is a giant table of... It's mostly good shit, though. Well, having stunned is Not great, but that's hilarious. All right, so Wand of Wonder does. I can't imagine all of these do. Well, fuck. Wand of Fireballs does. What else is it? Web. Or no, sorry. Fear and Binding. Fear and Binding in Las Vegas. Binding does. Okay, maybe you're onto something. All of these require attunement. Wow. All right, my bad. Every single one of those wands requires attunement. Yeah, well, maybe Dirge is an artificer, a high-level artificer who can attune to 4 items. It definitely sounds like DM magic. It also just seems like a fun idea, right? You've got a 4-armed dude. Of course, he's going to wield four wands. But that's a good balancer for the party. It's like, hey, here's 4 wands, but oh yeah, all of them do require individual attunement. So you're not gonna be able to use them all necessarily, and you've already got items you probably do want to use, but that still gives the party a lot of crazy options if you do want to give them all these wands. I think he's a Baron, right? Does that look like the Baron, the Sahuagin Baron stat block? Which, we never did fight the Baron at the Sahuagin stronghold, did we? We did fight a Baron, I think, earlier in the Wreck of the Golden Crown. I think that was a Baron. Where are you, Baron? Yes, he is. AC 16, hit point 76, 3 attacks, and then all this. Yeah, he's literally a Sahuagin Baron with the wands. Although he doesn't wield, he wields the wands instead of wielding a trident, so that's, I guess he's a weaker in melee technically. But yeah, if you had all those wands, that's all you would do. Now, okay, sorry, I'm reading this. Dirge counts as spellcaster for purpose of tuning to wands. Spell save DC 15. If Dirge is carrying more than 1 wand, he can use an action to expend 1 charge from up to 2 wands, triggering the effects of them simultaneously. So not only, lazy DM, are we using DM power to wield 4 wands? We're using DM power to cast 2 wands in 1 turn, which is also a giant BS thing. But if you're going to let somebody wield 4 wands, I don't think it's a bridge too far to let them cast 2 wands at the same time. So it's a fun stat block. It's a fun idea. Now I'm rubbing up against my idea of having this crew, and keep in mind, a wand of fireball wouldn't be nearly as helpful underwater. Be woefully unprepared for fighting a vampire's lair, a vampire inner lair. She was able to basically defeat them, and now I'm trying to decide, did she completely defeat them and they're literally all either dead or vampire spawn, in which case the party can fight some of them, and then once they get to her, they realize like, oh, we can just talk to her first and without hopefully having to kill her. And she's pissed that these guys came in and thought they were gonna loot the place. And they can be like, whoa, sorry, we had no idea you were here. We were here to actually take them out. So now that you did that, we're good. We're going to peace out. And she might actually let them do that. I may do something fun where it's like, I'll let you go, but I want to like taste of one of you first or something and see how far I'm willing to push the party, basically, with a powerful NPC that can perhaps bully the party a little bit. That'd be a fun thing to do. Maybe she wants to taste some steak, some turtle soup, or some chicken. It kind of works for the whole party. They're all so delicious. Or is it more interesting to have Dirge still be alive, and perhaps they're either in the throes of combat and the party can come in and step in for that, although it makes it easier for them to be like, yeah, we'll help you, lady, kill this Sahuagin guy. Or is it more interesting to have Dirge still alive and not have fought her yet? Maybe it's just he ran away with maybe he's got a few minions left, and then she comes in and says like, yeah, they're barricaded them up somewhere and it's super fucking annoying. And she maybe initially thinks that the party is, you know, reinforcements or something. They're like, look, we're not Sahuagin. We're not with them. I guess I need to decide on that. My initial thought was to have them all wiped out. My only regret is that we may not see this pirate captain and all of his hilarious four-armed wand-wielding glory. We could still recreate that if, in fact, not only did she defeat them, but she turned even Dirge into a vampire spawn. And then maybe he's still got all his wands as a vampire spawn. Although I don't know why she wouldn't just claim them herself once she kills him and turns him into a vampire spawn. I just don't know how weird that is. And this having him be just a regular. And plus, you know, the power of the vampire is with like grabbing and biting people, not necessarily with shooting a bunch of wands off. So I don't know. I guess I'll need to figure that out still. And obviously we're not going to get to Narino this week, but I just wanted to make sure to cover all this stuff and kind of showcase the map and my thoughts for what's going down here, because Iron Hand Cairn I'm actually running very close to the book, because that one initially had the Storm Maiden in there and is what helped give me the idea of like, oh, this is what I should be doing, is putting the pirate captains in all of these various areas for the party to interact with and give them an excuse to go to these places. And I want to do that here. And I thought this one was really cool with the idea of the underwater vampire kind of being a shock that that's what's here, basically. I have tried out the new 2024 character sheets, John. In fact, I've been in talks with Roll20 on covering that here on the channel. It just went from alpha to beta, I think, recently, and I've been working through like some bugs and some other features, trying to make sure I've got all the information and making sure everything's working like it's supposed to. I guess basically I'm trying to figure out what all is like just part of the work in progress beta and what all is just a legit bug before I put together my video of the new sheet. But yeah, it's kind of confusing because I mean, it looks cool, but obviously Roll20 doesn't yet have the new 2024 books plugged in yet. They're not going to have it until it actually releases. So even though you can go and mess with the new sheets and have it look really nice, instead obviously looks very similar to D&D Beyond's new kind of digital, you know, look for the sheets. They don't have the new stuff plugged in, so it's still using all the old 2014s. I really fucking wish we had a proper name for these things rather than just the year. It sounds weird to call it 2014 and 2024. Why couldn't we just say 5.5, right? I think everybody was on board with 5.5. It worked for 3rd edition. Call it 5.2 or something weird. Let's just go the whole Kingdom Hearts route. It's D&D 5.2 Dream Drop Distance or something. You can whatever. I don't like the year though. That's messed me up too much. But I think tomorrow, obviously we're not going to make it into any of Narino. We'll just be covering the rest of Iron Hand Cairn, but we'll be diving a lot more. We should absolutely finish Iron Hand Cairn tomorrow, I would expect, because we already made it farther than I thought we did. So we'll deal with all of that. I'm very excited to see how that goes. And then we'll talk more about Narino for next week. And I think that will do it for this Thursday edition of Crafting the Deep. As always, if you enjoy the content, please check out patreon.com/Rogue Watson. Shouts to Platinum patrons Joe, Will, Thomas, Dan, Brennan, Zensider, Eclectic, Roleplay Roll, Christopher, Corey, Big Nut, John F, John L, Tyler, Nathan, Cap Crystal, Counselor, Andrew, Daryl, The Reldrin, Stephanie, Patrick, Jason, Ismail, Amit, Olympus, Boda, Sharni, Warden, Harold, Sam, Eudaimonia, LLC, Jamie, Reese, Tom, and Lucius, and Gold patrons RPG, Papercrafts, Pretty Boy, and Yuma, Lizard Lounge, Jerome, Nathan, Fastic, Tortoise, Scott, Rufus, Karen, Jerry, Glenn, Marcus, and Mark. Thank you all very much for your support. If you are signed up for our Patreon game, I will see you tonight. Otherwise, I will see everybody tomorrow for D&D